Fluttershy the Zoophilia-obsessed Hematolagniac by Dracoliat. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. The little white bunny hopped contentedly along the path leading to the edge of the everfree forest. His hopping stopped as he turned and stomped a few times before finally Fluttershy got out from a nearby bush. An exasperated sigh came from the little bunny as Fluttershy apologized yet again.
I'm sorry. I just wouldn't want anyone to see me right now.
The yellow Pegasus looked towards the gravel road as they continued heading cautiously to the everfree forest. A powerful smell came from Fluttershy that made her glad that no stallions were around at the moment.
It was such a nice dream, too. He reared up and begged to buck me with his big dick. Then I asked him to go faster, and he just said, "Hey, yup." It was.
But the Pegasus was cut off by Angel stamping his foot loudly.
Oh, right. I already told you. Sorry.
Her cheeks began to develop a red blush as she saw Big Mac in the distance, his big strong legs kicking into a tree, causing a few baskets beneath to be filled. His eyes looked around before they met Fluttershy's. The pink-maned pony's tongue ran seductively over her lips before Angel tugged hard on her foot, reminding her of their destination.
Oh yeah. Sorry about that, Angel.
With a quick burst of will, Fluttershy broke eye contact and kept heading towards the forest a bit faster now. After about half an hour of travel, they were finally in the home run as Fluttershy took in the dark forest and the single simple wooden shed in the middle of it. Oh no. Her hoof knocked lightly on the door, causing a pair of hoof steps to get louder as they approached the door. As the entrance opened, As the entrance opened, Zecora stood in the doorway. Oh,
Ah, Fluttershy. How may I help you? Or is your visit out of the blue?
she rhymed, as was her trademark.
Well, I feel kind of weird and hope you could maybe do something about it.
Zecora beckoned Fluttershy into her hut as she shut the door behind the shy Pegasus.
Now, shall we get?
But she was interrupted by a scent that hit her like a brick wall at 100 miles an hour. She stumbled slightly as she ran towards a window. Intending to open it, she accidentally lost her balance and smashed it. The smell began to fade as Zecora faced Fluttershy.
Have you felt like this before? There's no need to act like a whore. No. Do you know what's wrong with me? I had this weird dream last night where Big Mac was so big and he climbed on me before beginning to
But she was interrupted again by Zecora as she held up a hoof. Zecora's face turned away for a minute as she waited for the blush to diminish.
There is no cure for what ails you, so just wait and don't don't take any stallion scoo.
she she said before pushing Fluttershy lightly out of her door and shutting it behind her. Fluttershy stayed silent as she thought about exactly what Zecora had said. There was no cure except for time. But then how could she help herself? Again, Angel was the proverbial voice of reason as he jumped in front of Fluttershy and pointed all around them, reminding her of where they were.
Oh, you're right, Angel. This isn't a very safe place. We can go home now.
Fluttershy's hoofsteps grew softer and softer as she saw the light at the end of the forest. Her hooves eventually stopped as she saw Big Macintosh passing by only a few feet from the forest's dark entrance. Luckily, he couldn't see Fluttershy as she looked in between his legs to find, to her disappointment, that he wasn't stimulated enough to see anything of interest. Okay. The pink-maned Pegasus waited for a moment before exiting the forest and keeping her head low as she walked towards her home. Gradually, the gravel was kicked up faster and faster as her hoofsteps became less controlled, until she was in a full-on gallop towards her house. Of course, this only caused every pony she saw on her way to stop and stare at her. With a loud slam, Oh, fuck. With a loud slam, Fluttershy shut her door, barely giving Angel enough time to squeeze in.
Do you want to play a game?
But her sentence was cut off as she seemed to stare into nowhere. Confused, the little bunny followed the entrant Pegasus into the kitchen as she grabbed a knife and walked back to the front door, knowing whatever she was going to do couldn't be good. Angel stepped in front of her but was crushed by a hoof, leaving a what? Leaving a bloody stain on the wooden floors and on Fluttershy's hooves. But this did nothing but cause Fluttershy's feeling of pure desire to become even stronger. This is a really weird.
Oh God.
Fluttershy began to gallop back to the entrance to the Everfree Forest, only to run headlong into Big Macintosh. His powerful eyes first looked at her, then at the blade she was carrying nervously. He held out his hoof and asked,
Fluttershy, may I have the knife?
Fluttershy simply stared back at him before smiling.
I'm sorry, I can't give you the knife, but, I could give you something else.
Fluttershy said as she held her flank
Oh.
high in the air towards Big Mac. The smell of her heat cycle almost overpowering him, but he resisted doing something they would both regret later. With a sharp turn of his head, Big Mac turned around and began walking back to Sweet Apple Acres before remembering he still didn't have the knife. But the scariest part of her was that look in her eyes, a strange kind of bloodlust the red stallion had never seen before. It filled his entire body with petrifying fear, so that his only movement was to look back to where Fluttershy had been, but she was already gone. The obsessed Fluttershy's feet carried her through the darkest part of the forest. Knife now safely positioned in her mouth. She didn't know what she was looking for. She didn't know what she was looking for. She only knew that when she found it, she'd know something strong, something powerful to satisfy her urges. The knife would just help with convincing her victim into cooperation with her. After a few minutes of running, Fluttershy stopped to catch her breath before hearing a loud breathing sound that wasn't her own. A quick peek through a nearby bush revealed a rather large manticore, if memory served correctly the same one she saved over a year ago. Carefully, Fluttershy walked out of the bush and approached the manticore. The creature took a single look at the Pegasus wielding the knife before running towards her and licking her face with his large slobbery tongue.
That's a good boy,
She said as her hoof reached up and pet him behind the ear kindly. Her other hoof stroked his face lightly, causing his eyes to watch her suspiciously. Her hoof that was petting his ears began to move down his back, moving in small circles along the way. Her tongue casually licked the manticore's thick neck, her actions sending signals straight to the animal's brain, causing an increase in heartbeat and an increase in other areas. Oh God. In other areas as well. I don't want to finish this now. Okay.
finish.
I will. Fluttershy's hooves gradually began to go lower and lower, her tongue exploring his chest as her hooves found their mark. The knife lay abandoned at the side of the manticore. Her hooves slowly began to rub up and down on the well-endowed beast. His head rearing back slightly as Fluttershy's actions registered with his instinctive brain. Her tongue sunk lower still before finally hitting the dick of the beast. Her mouth slowly enveloped the stiff wood, her mouth warming up the cold beast during the night, but the bliss wouldn't last, at least not for the manticore. Fluttershy's hoof grabbed the knife as the manticore was too distracted being sucked to notice. Her hoof came across its chest, causing a splatter of blood to cover Fluttershy's back, and the creature to roar in pain. Her mouth quickly moved from his dick as she dug her knife deeper into the fresh red wound before finally striking one of the major veins in his chest, causing a spurt of blood to fly into her awaiting mouth. Her loins flooded with heat as she tasted the rusted metal characteristic of blood, but the manticore didn't want to die that day and attempted to stand only to find itself frozen in fear as Fluttershy used to stare on it. Fluttershy's hooves flew up to the wound and squeezed more blood out of it. Covering her hooves in it, they slowly slid up the inside of her thighs, leaving a streak of blood before reaching their destination. She knew it didn't get any better than this. The manticore's blood mixing with the juice coming out of her pussy. Her bliss was absolute as her mouth continued to suck harshly on the deep wound and showed no signs of slowing down, even though her head was getting less organized and more dizzy. The pink-maned Pegasus pushed the knife up to the creature's neck and pushed it down onto its back before grabbing its dick. With a tiny force, the creature roared in pain as a fountain of blood erupted from in between its legs. The knife came down again on what remained, scraping it off before cutting down, making a small, tight, bleeding slit where the penis used to be.
Tell me if you want to replace roles. Oh wait, there's a little bit left. You want me to finish?
Yeah, you finished it.
The Pegasus laid on her side, and she forced herself next to the Manticore, getting her own slit to rub against the new bleeding one. The Manticore had, as the Manticore's blood began to flow into hers, Fluttershy's mouth opened wide, elicting a long moan. Her pleasure was nearly unimaginable, and she continued the rubbing motions, her teeth rubbing against each other tightly as her cunt lips were peeling back by the forced motions. The blood going straight into her womb finally did it for Fluttershy. A forceful orgasm caused some of the blood to go into the Manticore's own slit. Her eyes went wide as she roared in pain at the uninviting new fluids entering his body. It felt as his entire body was on fire as the cum pumped around his veins. The heart of the Manticore pumped harder and harder as the cum began to form a strange, vicious layer in one of the main arteries towards his heart. Finally, it pumped once more and the vein burst, causing a final blast of blood to come from his chest and improvised vagina. Fluttershy was still recovering from her orgasm as the blood shot into her again before she noticed all the blood had stopped. She smiled and stood from her taxing episode, and she found she was completely unafflicted and made a mental note next time she was in heat, kill some pony and put their blood in her vagina.
Oh my god.
That gave me the strangest boner.
Oh man. Not same.
Urgy?
Urgy.
Urgy. That was a good urgy.
That was.
Good